Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us on today's webinar on the CAD Import tool. We'll wait for a couple of minutes before we start, just so more attendees can enter. Just as a reminder, in the meantime, we're going to mention a bit Pulse, which is our conference event on renewable energies, which this time is going to be the third edition of it on the 3rd and the 4th of April next year, 2025. So if you're looking to attend, or maybe some of your colleagues and friends are looking to attend, remember there's a super early bird discount around 60%, which is going to be up till the 20th of December. So be in a hurry to buy these tickets. And if you need any more information on this, of course, let us know. You can contact us at any point. And also, if you're interested in being a speaker at Pulse, feel free to let us know as well. Many of our clients tend to come to this conference to talk about their business and their plans and their markets, which is really nice to learn from everyone.
Definitely. And also, we have a product webinar on January 8th. So in case you'd be interested in learning more about the new features launched at RatedPower Q4 of this year, then you should definitely be joining this webinar. We'll be exploring the best standalone new OpEx units and other features as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, while we're waiting also, we hope you're preparing some great plans for Christmas and New Year's. See some your families, your friends, or maybe go on vacation somewhere nice, maybe somewhere warmer because it's really cold out here at the moment. But yeah, hope some great plans are coming.
True,
We'll give it a
true.
few more seconds and we'll see.
Also, a quick reminder to the folks here, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the question option so that later on we'll be able to answer those.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. I think we can go ahead now and start.
Ready?
So hello again for everyone that just joined on today's webinar on the CAD Import tool, one of the additions or features that we added this year during summer. During this call, we're going to see both me and my colleague Altair. So I'm Hassan. I'm the lead technical advisor at RatedPower. I'm part of the customer success team. I've been here for around 6 years now. And with me is Altair.
Hello, I'm Altair, part of the customer support team, been in the company for over 2 years and a half now. And I assist different markets such as the Sub-Saharan Africa and the Southeast Asia. Back to you, Hassan.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Altair. Perfect. So on today's session, we're going to go through different parts. We're going to start with a simple introduction on what this feature is all about. Then we're going to briefly explain a bit the concept of what a CRS and what is an EPSG. Then we're going to mention the requirements for the CAD file. A bit of a spoiler, it has to be DWG. To then finally go through a bit of a walkthrough in both AutoCAD and finally the importing process within our RatedPower tool. At the end of that walkthrough, we're going to actually mention another feature which came out this week, but that will be for later, so no spoilers yet. And at the end, of course, we're going to go into the Q&A. So just as Altair mentioned, please, if you have any questions, make sure you add them to the questions panel or section as soon as possible. So this way we have more questions to go through later on.
Definitely. So starting in the introduction, I think one of the most important things to highlight is how we've been able to upload the sites before. And so it used to be a KML and KMZ files only, but with the time we added more features, and the one after was the shape file. And this year during the summer, we also launched the feature to upload a DWG CAD file, so that the users can have these different options when working with different sites.
Yeah, and the thing here is that many users, especially new, let's say leads that are in the market, recently joining the market of solar, would be asking us, hey, which file or which format of a file should we upload for a site? Like, should we just do it directly inside your tool? Because as you know, you can do that inside the RatedPower tool. Or should we upload a KML, KMZ file? There's a shape file, and there's, of course, the CAD. Honestly, always or all formats are okay. They're all good as long as they have the right, they have as much precision as possible within the boundaries and so on. Usually CAD does have the best precision because everything is naturally georeferenced, and because many of the tools from which you get these files from can export in DWG also, of course, KML and KMZ. So as long as you know that you're getting it from a good source, it's georeferenced and so on, usually we would recommend the CAD, but other formats can also be good.
Definitely. So then we're going to talk about the concept of CRS and EPSG. Then nothing more than to ask what is CRS, EPSG, and why are they important when uploading to RatedPower. So CRS and EPSG are very common terms when creating site boundaries and topography. They will help ensure accurate positioning of site boundaries and proper alignment across multiple data sets. Quite often, the data boundaries and topography that we might get can come from different sources. And by using a common CRS, it can seamlessly help align those different sources onto the same surface. And starting with CRS, also known as Coordinate Reference System, which describes how the spatial data is represented onto the Earth surface. It specifies the coordinate system, such as latitude, longitude, or X and Y, the datum, which can be WGS, Net83, and other examples, and the projection models such as Mercator, UTM, and others also available. And then we have the EPSG, also known as European Petroleum Survey Group, which standardize identification codes of the different CRSs to be used in software and data sharing. And then here we have this table that contains different examples of CRCRS and the corresponding EPSG codes. We can see one of the most used one, WGS UTM, the code, and also the description of which parts it covers. Same thing for OS, GB, UK, Net83, North America, and the other examples too. And now let's go over on setting the CAD file. So there are a few considerations that we must do when creating or preparing our CAD file to upload to RatedPower. And the first one, as my colleague Hassan mentioned, is that they must be in a DWG format. It's very common to see sometimes a DXF file. And in case you have the CAD software, you can open that on a DXF and you can simply save as a DWG and you'll be able to upload it easily. The second one is that it must be geo-referenced, right? So as we saw in the previous slide, there are different CRSs, the UTM, NAD. So you can choose either one of those to georeference your CAD file because it's going to be very, very crucial when plotting those into the software. And then the polygons or polylines, they cannot be broken, right? So let's give an example of a square. We cannot have individual lines making that square. They all must be united. They all must be joined so that when we upload to the tool, the software will be able to read it as a whole polygon.
Yeah, exactly. Another thing that we would usually recommend is that you simplify these DWG files as much as possible. That means try to just include those elements, those layers that you actually want to import, because it's going to make it much easier, as you will see later with us, to select the right layers and elements when importing, as there's going to be a long list over there. Also, because it's actually going to be very important for the next requirement, which is the size of the file, because the size of the file currently is or cannot be more than 20 megabytes. Of course, if you, in any case, end up needing more than that, just let us know, send us the feedback, and we can hopefully work on it for future improvements. And the final requirement to mention here would be how many layers are accepted. So you should not have more than 30 layers within the file, and within each of these layers, no more than 500 elements. And when we say elements, basically we're referring to things like the polygons, the lines, the points, and these sort of things.
Definitely.
Perfect. So with that, we're now actually going to go a bit into the tools and start playing around a bit. First, we're going to get directly into the CAD file, so the DWG file. A few things to mention which came out in the requirements would be things like, for instance, how do you know whether the file is georeferenced? To know if a file is georeferenced, if you notice, as my colleague Altair is actually moving around, we can notice that on the lower tab at the bottom of AutoCAD, exactly over there, we can see that those coordinates are actually, those numbers are changing because it's showing coordinate numbers. This means that the file is georeferenced. This is actually one of the main requirements out of the ones we mentioned, because if a site, a location is not georeferenced, and let's say you try to upload it on the map, it might end up being somewhere else and not the correct place. So it's always very important to have it with the right georeferencing. Another thing here is the concept of CRS that Altair also mentioned earlier. And we can see this also on the lower tab where it says UTM-8410N. So here's the AutoCAD is specifying what the CRS is. In some cases, you might not be able to see it. If that is so, just make sure you go to the lower right corner where it has like the 3 dashes, and then you look for the GIS coordinates and you enable it. By enabling it, it should show up. Sometimes you will not find that option. If that is the case, it just means that the CAD file does not have the CRS embedded, and that's no big deal. It's not a problem. As we will see later, that we can still make sure to select the CRS within the RatedPower tool instead.
Definitely. And then talking a little bit about the layers. So it's very normal that when you're working on CAD, you might have different layers that can represent different elements. In this case here, for example, we have this a CAD file that has a slope, it has the available area, vegetation, wetland, and so those will also be taken into account when uploading to the software. As my colleague mentioned, there's a restriction of up to 30 layers that you can select to consider for your site. So just make sure that you have all of the elements up to those 30 layers. You don't have to reach the 30 layers. In this case, we have less than 10 layers here. And the other thing is with regards to the number of elements per layer, which my colleague mentioned, it cannot be exceeding the 500 elements. So in this case here, let me just click on one element. Then I'm going to select all of the elements in the same layer, and we'll be able to see how many of those elements we actually have. So in this case, we have about 23 elements below 500, so we should be good. In case it exceeds the 500 elements, you will still be able to see them in the software, but you will not have the option to check and use those layers.
Exactly. Another thing here is that when preparing the file, we set to simplify it as much as possible. Of course, usually users would think, okay, so that means that I should delete any layers I don't need, or perhaps I can just copy paste to coordinates on a different panel the actual elements that I require. That is true. However, there's an easier way, just simply by turning off the layers that you don't need. Later on, RatedPower will recognize that, and it will only show the layers that were actually turned on. So that's the simplest way to do it.
Definitely. And now we just save this CAD file. Let me just save that again. And let's go to RatedPower. And so in here, what we need to do is click new site and then create a new site where we'll see the DWG option. And in this interface, we're going to click import site info. And we're going to look for our CAD file. I'm going to select that, click import. And so, as my colleague Hassan mentioned, if there is a CRS embedded, we will be able to identify that. So in this case, WGS84, the CRS, the description, and also the EPSG code. The other example would be if there's no CRS embedded in the file. In those cases, you would simply just type in either the CRS name or the EPSG code. So as I'm doing right now here, you would be able to find that code and you can simply click to confirm. Or even if your file already has a CRS embedded, you can still change to any other option. You can just click confirm.
Exactly. So once we select or we confirm the CRS, we can finally see now the different layers on the left sidebar. You can also notice that the names of those layers have been maintained just the way they were in the DWG file, and it also mentions the number of elements within each layer. So this can be very useful. Out of these layers, actually, now we're going to select which ones we want to import. So for today, we're going to select, for instance, the ST layer, the vegetation one, and the available area. One thing you can notice already is that as we are selecting these layers, the elements within them are turning purple on the map. Next step would be to simply import the layers. So that's the button on the lower part. Now it's going to open us a dialog to confirm it. And with that, we can go to the next step.
Alrighty. So in the next step, we'll be able to now define the elements that we want to consider into our site. And so basically what we need to do here is, so first, we're also keeping the layer names to easily identify them. So ST for the substation. So you can simply click here and assign it to a substation. Something else that you can do is you can double click that and it will take you exactly to that element. So it makes it even more easier for you to validate if you need to add that or not. And for the remaining of the elements, we're just gonna assign them as a restricted area. And also the last one as a available area.
Perfect. And with that, we've just successfully imported the DWG file. You can notice now that the software is telling us within the interactive site creator that we're in, that we're still missing some main elements for the site. So these are going to be very simple. We can just add them quickly over here. It's telling us that we still need an access point, an AC point for each available area. So in this case, we only have one. So thus, we will only create one. And we still need the MV point, which is the medium voltage point within the substation, the ST polygon. And with that, we can finally now save the site and we can start working on the designs within this project. Perfect. So it has just been successfully now uploaded to the file, to the project. So with this, we're actually now done with the CAD import tool itself. However, we did mention at the start that we would also go through another feature, which actually came out on Monday, and that would be the CRS for the documents. So if you remember, in the past, we used to only allow our users to export their layouts and so on, so the documents that we generate in a specific CRS system, which was the WGS84. However, now users can actually change that CRS to any other one that they prefer to use. And this will all be basically in the settings tab. So if we go to the settings tab right now to document preferences, Altair can show us a bit how this works.
Definitely. So right now we basically have the option for the user to change the CRS of the documentation. Very straightforward and easy process. You can simply click on change CRS. And in here, you will have this list of different CRS options with the description, the EPSG code unit. So if for the units, there's 3 units here. If we click on filters, you can basically just select the one that you have the most interest in, either meters, international feet, and US survey feet. And also, you will see this distance to site. So this distance to site basically refers to the distance from the center point of the project to the center point of the CRS. And they are basically shown as from the shortest distance to site to the farthest distance to site. So if I go to page 10, for example, it's going to be, for example, 625 kilometers away. So you can simply just choose one. In this case, let's select this second one and click save. And we'll see that this data has also been updated. So the name NED83, EPSG code 2286, the unit feet, distance to site, and as well as the CRS convergence degrees.
Exactly. And another thing regarding those units for each basically CRS, so the feet, the meters, and so on, whenever you switch the CRS system, that will actually automatically switch the unit system for the documents just to make or to keep things coherent. And with this being said, there's always another thing to always mention when talking about CRSs and georeferencing and so on. So we're now going to actually move to the layout tab. And within the layout tab, the layout configuration, all the way at the bottom. And here, some of you might remember that we used to have the U2M convergence correction enablement button, which by default was always enabled. Now, this is like the same option, but it's been divided into two. Now it's called a geographic coordinate system and documents CRS. The difference, well, first of all, which one do we recommend? We're always going to recommend, or in most cases at least, we're going to recommend that you go with the geographic coordinate system. because what this is going to do is it's going to basically make sure that the exportables, things like the layout and so on, are going to be, of course, georeferenced, but also they're going to be facing true north. The way you will notice this is that they will look as if they're slightly rotated, but don't worry about the rotation. In reality, they're not rotated, but because of the way the Earth is and to face north, they should be slightly deviated from the normal axis. Whereas the document CRS, the second option, doesn't care about the true north. Instead, it tries to make sure that everything, so the different elements are parallel and perpendicular to the grid of AutoCAD instead.
Alrighty. And with that, then after we change the CRS and we choose either one of the alignment options and we run the simulation, there are different documentations that you'll be able to see those changes, those coordinates being changed, and those will be, let's give it a few seconds, or we can just open this one so that you can know which documents you'll find those changes. So you'll find those changes in the terrain XYZ listing of posts. This one will contain the structure, the piles, and all of those will have the new CRS of your preference. Also the DXF general layout, the layout 3D, the topography analysis, the DXF, and also the structure profiles option here. So basically, you have about six documents that you'll be able to explore and enjoy those new coordinate systems. And I think we've covered most of it, and perhaps we can jump to the Q&A.
Perfect.
Just go here.
So remember, you can drop down your questions in the panels. There are a few questions already, not many. So please, if you have any other than those, feel free to add them. I'm going to start reading the first one. So that would be, is it possible to differentiate between different types of exclusion zones when uploading from DWG? Okay, I'm going to actually take that, Altair, if you don't mind. I guess, so when we were importing the DWG file, we showed that the different layers had like namings. I guess maybe you're referring to that. So we can notice the different types of exclusion zones by their names. That's one thing. So that obviously you can see when importing. Now the other thing, maybe, I'm not sure if you're referring to, but I'm gonna mention it either way. That's something that is in the tool. There's a way to actually have a different configuration for each exclusion zone. So things like setbacks and so on. You can change those per each exclusion zone by defining it as a different type. This at the moment is currently not available through the importing process yet. It's available by uploading a CAML or a CAMZ file under certain requirements. However, the good news is that we are working on it to add it through in the following year, 2025, beginning of the following year, so that you will also be able to basically have a different configuration for each restricted area or exclusions. Hopefully that was clear. So I'm gonna move to the next one. Can I upload control lines as well? Do you wanna take that, Altair?
Definitely, Hassan. Can upload contour lines? The answer is yes, you can upload the contour lines, but those will need to be with the current workflow or the format, which is in a CSV, XYZ, or TXT file. So you will need to convert those contour lines CAD to either one of these formats that the tool currently allows. We do believe that it's quite possible that for the next year we might explore this option because we already have the CRS database into our tool. We already have the CAD import feature for the site, so it's possible that it could be quite easy. I'd say to also upload the contour lines via CAD file. So
Perfect. Thanks, Altair. So there's
definitely.
been another question. I think it's related to the first question I answered, or at least to the second part of my question. Um, are there certain layer names that need to be used for different types of RAs? So if you're talking about the DWG, it doesn't matter. Like the layers can have any naming you want, because afterwards you're going to actually assign the type. And once you assign the types, they're all going to be like restricted RAs, as you said, actually. And they're all going to be of the same type. However, if you're referring to the KML KMZ file, which I mentioned, or what we actually call characterization of RAs ourselves, those, to do it within the KML or KMZ file, what you have to do is, let's say you have 10 exclusion zones or RAs, and you want like 4 to be of one type and the rest of the 6 to be of another type. What you would have to do is name those 4 RA-1 and the other 6 RA-2, or you can create a folder in the KML file called RA-1 and then put those 4 exclusion zones or RAs within it, and then have another folder called RA-2 and have the other 6 exclusion zones within it. So this way, the KML file will recognize when being uploaded. The software will recognize basically that those exclusion zones are of a specific type grouped together and should thus have a specific configuration different from the rest. Yeah, I think
Exactly.
Altair is also trying to show us a bit what I'm referring to.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just going to change. We have about 4 exclusion zones here. I'm going to rename them. Let's say this to be the first one, be the second one, to be the third one, and the fourth one. As Hassan mentioned, you can create folders and assign them RA1, 2, 3, and 4, and have all of those elements with any specific name to be like wetlands or a vegetation. But in this example here, I'm just assigning the elements themselves. And let's then save.
Yeah, small thing to say here. Correction actually on what I said. I said dash. It's underscore, not dash. My bad.
And it's all right. Just save it here too. And let's open here again and upload site. Okay. So basically, as Hassan mentioned, then if you upload those with this current version right now, because we're going to be updating that so that you can do that all within the software, but you'll be able to see the RA1, 2, 3, 4, and you, for example, will be able to change the name, let's say, for instance, wetland, and define a different color. Um, and let's say, for example, a house or any other type of obstruction here. And the other advantage is that you can also define different setbacks, right? So it's not just the name or the color, but also the different strategies. You can define different, for example, fences strategies for different RA. For example, if you want those RAs or restricted areas to be included or excluded from the fence, let me just run this simulation here. And after that, also on the setbacks, you can assign different setbacks from the structure to the restricted area, from the restricted area to the fence. And also the road is the strategy where you can tell the software if you want the road to avoid those RAs, or if you don't mind if they actually cross them, right? So we can see here right now, in this case, the different arrays, names, colors that we were able to assign here.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Altair. Also, another thing about this is once you export the documents, like the layouts and so on, they will also include these namings and colors within the layers, for instance.
True, true.
Perfect. So I'll go through the next questions. Actually, so for the last question, so please, if you have more questions, feel free to add them or drop them down the questions panel. So this is actually related to what I explained at the end. Why would anyone want to use the document CRS option you mentioned at the end? So it was in the layout tab, layout configuration. If you can take us out here.
Alrighty, sorry. Let
So
me go
yeah,
here.
it would be exactly. So why would anyone want to use the document CRS rather than the geographic coordinate system? Because as I said, we usually recommend the first option because it means that everything is going to be facing true north. So Altair, can you let us know why anyone would use the second option?
The document CRCRS.
Yeah,
Um, well, you would want to use the document CRCRS in the cases where you want elements in your DWG or your general layout to be fully aligned, let's say parallel or perpendicular to the grid lines of your CAD tool. So if you choose this document CRS, and when you open that on CAD, you'll be able to see that everything will be aligned. But if you choose the geographic coordinate system, where they'll be facing the true north and true south, then you might see some slight rotation on CAD. So the user basically has these two options.
yeah. And the reason why some people might actually use it, so it's an option we at some point we were thinking of not having, but like years ago. But the reason we maintained it so far is because some users actually require like their layouts, their planes, and so on to be nicely looking. So they want everything to look linear and so on. And for that reason, they require it not to be necessarily geographically correct, but rather to look nice when presenting. So that's the main use you would get out of it. However, if you care more about, hey, I want to take this to, let's say, construction, or I want to make sure this is a final layout, or so on, usually you would go for the first option, the geographic one, for the reasons we just mentioned. Perfect. So we can see that there are no more questions. Of course, this doesn't mean that you cannot ask us more. If you have any other questions about this, any other feature, how to use the tool, they can always contact us at support@ratedpower.com. We're always happy to help out with anything that we could. Hopefully, this webinar was useful to you, and you now start bit implementing these new features into your workflow. And of course, again, if you have any feedback as well, let us know. We're always trying to improve these features or add new features based on the feedback that we receive from clients and new users like you guys. So thanks a lot. Take
Thank
care.
you.